And before we carry on, I'd just like to give a shout out to Rob, James, and Simon over at For Your Reconsideration, a podcast for movies that deserve a second chance, maybe. They're a really funny group of guys who discuss movies that are underrated, forgotten, or just downright shit. And it's a really, really great podcast. Check it out on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, and welcome to Matt and Mike Pull Focus. I'm Mike.
And I'm not.
And today we're going to be talking about the 2007 film, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, There Will Be Blood. So Matt, this time last week we spoke about my favourite film, Memento, and now to turn the tables, we're going to be talking about your favourite film. Is that correct to say?
Yes, it was only a matter of time, really, until I had to do this one. I mean, this is the best film ever made.
Okay, strong words.
Yeah, I just... in sort of, if people ask you like what your top 3, top 10, whatever, this kind of sits in like a, on a cloud kind of above the rest of them.
This never moves.
Since I saw it in 2008, I think it was early 2008, I believe it was released in the UK.
Okay.
It was story time. So just put it in some kind of context, me and my family were on holiday. We were up in Scotland, me and my brother and my mum, and we had a meal, and then we decided to go to the cinema. It was a very spur of the moment kind of thing. And my brother said, "Oh, have you heard of this movie, There Will Be Blood?" And my brother was studying in St Andrews at university at the time, and he'd been to see it once. And he said, it was that kind of thing where, he didn't say it was a masterpiece, or anything. He just said, yeah, it's really interesting. I've seen it once, a couple of weeks ago. Should go and see it. And I said, well, all right, just completely kind of nonplussed, like, all right, how long is it? 3 hours. Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough, go and see it. And it was, so sat down, watched it, and it was, it was really interesting and brooding, and, took a while, and I enjoyed it. And then, sort of pondered it, and then started thinking about it, and then got the soundtrack, and just started listening to the music, and thought, oh, yeah, that was a really good film there.
Yeah.
Then I watched it again when it came out on Blu-ray, and thought it was amazing, absolutely brilliant. Then third time, watched it, it was a masterpiece.
Yeah.
Then I started touring it around. I got this DVD, this Blu-ray, took it around my friends' houses, and said, dude, you have to watch this film. And I probably watched it with something like, 6 separate groups of friends on different occasions, and sat down and got kind of, mixed responses. Like some people, were kind of like, it's a bit long. And other people were like, wow, that is incredible. And it just got better and better and better. And I just rinsed the soundtrack, listened to it all the time. And I just absolutely love it.
So you became like an advocate for it, trying to shift it to as many people as you can. Yeah,
because anything you love, you always think it's kind of underappreciated, because and it's that thing of I thought, oh, no one's talking about There Will Be Blood, and I was like, it got like at least 2 Oscars.
Yeah, it got like 9 Oscars.
It got like 9, yeah, it like loads of many noms, and it won at least 2, I think.
Yeah, Day-Lewis won for acting.
Yeah,
and cinematography, I believe, got the other.
I think Johnny Greenwood did win. I can't remember if he won or if he got nominated. There was a whole controversy about that because his Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead did the score. He was a guitarist from Radiohead.
Fantastic score.
It's amazing. I think it's one of the reasons it's such a great movie.
Yeah.
Like 50% of what you see is what you hear, and
Definitely.
a lot of the sort of the danger and the the ambience is on the soundtrack. But yeah, he got, there was some kind of what's the word, like small print that he couldn't get nominated for Best Original Score because some of the music that he used had been written for a previous project, or it had been used
making it ineligible.
Yeah, ineligible. Yeah, so he got nominated for Best Contributions to Music.
Oh, see, I hate when the Oscars do that. Just like eliminating potential winners because of little small things.
Yeah,
like
it's like this is his music. I mean, if it was written for something previous, it was used in this and to great effect.
Exactly, because Trent Reznor won for The Social Network despite using some music from his Nine Inch Nails like main projects in that.
And that wasn't an issue.
No, and he still won the Oscar for it.
Wow,
It was an
wow,
amazing Oscar-winning soundtrack, and I still love that soundtrack to this day. But he uses like some of the songs are on his album Ghosts,
Really?
and other things like that. So
Oh, I wonder. Well, that was post There Will Be Blood, wasn't it? That was
2010.
2010.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So I love that movie, by the way.
Sure.
I
Completely.
really love that film.
Again, like There Will Be Blood with you, I've watched it more and more, tried to introduce more people to it, and it's been like a grower.
Yeah.
And now I feel like it's one of the most important films of our decade.
No, I agree. I love that film, and I'm a huge Fincher fan. Like, I love his movies, and what I love about a lot of his movies is it's kind of like jumping onto a moving train. Like, it's the movie's already going, and you've got to get on the the wagon or get off. It's like kind of with what's the movie, the Gone Girl as well. That started, and again it was kind of already going, and you could either get involved or shove off.
Sure.
And I think that's the way I love what I love, and it's just so it shows a sort of confidence, to like just how great. Plus, I'm a huge fan of Alien 3, which is his. I think
that's going to be on this eventually.
Definitely. Yep. He hates it. I love it. I think it's wonderful. But
Alan Smithy's film, not David Fincher's film.
Yeah. I think Fox produces movies. What's it called, like the Walter Hill and David Giler. I think Fincher wasn't even involved in the edit process. He hated it so much. He was just treated so badly. Yeah. But I think it's a masterpiece. I love it. But yeah, we'll talk about that. Anyway.
Yeah, but like on the Oscar thing as well, it's the same kind of thing I feel about the Lego Movie not being able to be nominated for Best Animated Film.
And what was the caveat there?
Because like there's a small bit where like it's revealed that it's a child playing with it, and like Will Ferrell is live action in it, and therefore it excludes it from being nominated for Best Animated Film.
That's less than 5 minutes of footage, surely.
Exactly. But the entire film is done in such an amazing, interesting way, and has one of the best scripts and one of the best vocal performances of that year when it was nominated. And same thing about Part 2.
But how is a movie, if it's not in the animated film category, how is a 99% animated movie going to win in a normal category?
Exactly.
That's
I don't
nonsense.
But we're drifting from there. That's a bit there.
Yeah, we're good at this.
Yeah.
We should call this podcast Tangent. Big
Tangent
capital
podcast.
The Tangent podcast. So yeah, I think it's an absolute masterpiece. I love it for many, many reasons. And we watched it this week in preparation for this podcast. You watched it just last night, this afternoon.
This afternoon, just before coming around. But that was potentially my third time ever watching it.
Oh, okay.
It is. I don't know what it is. Like films like Lord of the Rings, which are like 3 hours, I don't mind because I feel like they just breeze. But with There Will Be Blood, I think it's because it takes its time so much. It's such a pondering film.
Yeah.
It's got so many pregnant pauses, so much time without any dialogue, like the first opening 18 minutes.
Yeah.
Without any dialogue at all, and it feels like such an arduous task. I mean, not in a bad way, but in like you have to dedicate your time to this because this demands your attention.
Yeah.
And it demands your respect because so much hard work has gone into it.
Yeah.
And I think this may be why it's taken me so long to watch Paul Thomas Anderson's work. Yeah. Because I feel like so much hard work goes into it that I can't just like, do it while the laundry's on, or I have to dedicate a night to it. I have to dedicate everything to watching.
And it takes a lot out of you as well. I think definitely. It's like I think a really good example is his movie Boogie Nights, because that film could be directed by somebody else and it could be so trashy and it could be awful. If it was directed by Transformers, or someone, Michael Bay,
Paul W.S. Anderson.
Paul W. Yeah,
one I always get him confused with.
I'd love to see the Paul W.S. Anderson version of There Will Be Blood. That'd be like lots of CGI, like
Mila Jovovich
ninjas
being
and
Daniel Plainview.
And zombies and things. God, Resident Evil sucks.
We'll get into
that. It's still like a 2002 memory of 2001 memory of going to the Trafford Centre and watching that and just being cripplingly disappointed. Even as a little bastard. I still hated it. Anyway, his movies do demand like all of your attention. They do take a lot out of you. They're kind of exhausting to watch and emotionally draining, but I don't mean that as in a negative way. I mean it just
they're experiences. They are cathartic kind of. Well, not religious experiences, but you definitely feel different after watching them. I feel
they're sort of a perfect blend of purely character driven but also the set pieces in them are just like it takes its time and it's very visual, in the same way. And I think it's a perfect film for me because it is a mixture of intimate character development, ambiguity, a lot of kind of like ambiguity to what these people are actually about, which is like real life, and also the set pieces and the score, and it's like 2001 meets something else amazing in a crack lounge. but yeah, I just love it. And so the movie starts, like it opens, and I mean, praise Stanley Kubrick, to be fair, it opens and there's this kind of panoramic view of the sort of Californian desert, like wilderness. Mm-hmm. And the strings just come up, and it's just like, oh my god, what is this film gonna be about? It's like it feels kind of sci-fi. It feels like a horror film as well. It's sort of The Hills Have Eyes, this like thing, and then you just immediately cut to a what do you call it, like a mine shaft, and our character Daniel, played by Daniel Day-Lewis, is chipping away with a pickaxe and mining for gold,
silver, isn't it?
Silver, gold,
silver mining,
silver mining.
Precious metals,
platinum. And he proceeds to break his leg by falling down this mine shaft after setting off some explosives. And so he breaks his leg and simultaneously finds a nugget of silver, very precious presumably, because he clings to this, and proceeds to drag himself, broken leg and all, back to town, where he cashes in this piece of silver. And
it's all done with no dialogue.
No.
Like just pure music, otherwise it's just silence.
Yeah.
And it's harrowing, and it's essentially the movie 127 hours within the first 18 minutes. But everything you need to know about Daniel Plainview is in this opening section.
Yeah.
Although, I mean, what you've just explained is only halfway.
Yeah.
Because then it carries on with what he does with that silver nugget, how he cashes it and uses the money and carries on.
And I think I want to know what because I've spoken to people about this interpretation of the plot, because I always assumed that he discovers the oil by accident, when the drill bit falls. Mm-hmm. I assumed he's still mining for silver and gold and what have you.
Yeah.
And the drill bit falls accidentally and strikes oil, which is kind of a new product at the time, or something that they're kind of learning to.
I got that impression. He was digging. So, and essentially, he uses his silver nugget to buy more equipment and buy more people.
Yeah.
And then carries on silver mining, but essentially through an accident of a large. What would you call it? A large bolt.
It's like a drill, like a drill bit or something.
Hitting like far down, like 60 feet down into the earth. It manages to get oil out of the ground, and like
it pierces the ground, like
he struck oil essentially.
Yeah.
And that's the start of him turning from being a silver miner into an oil prospector, an oilman.
Yeah.
But from what they show, I felt like it was completely purely an accident. And
that's how I always felt about it. I've watched it with people who say no, he is actually deliberately, dropped that bit into the ground, and I always thought it kind of looked like an accident to me. When he dropped it, and then
he's got like a look of shock and surprise when it happens.
Yeah, and the guy, I'm sorry, I've seen it too many times, but the guy tuts, he goes like that when the drill bit falls. But maybe that could be interpreted that they didn't strike, and then it does strike. It begins to come out a few seconds later.
Is this the start of the ambiguity of the film?
There's a lot of ambiguity, but that's what keeps it fresh for me. So following that strike, they start to get the oil out in buckets, and so they start to ladle the oil out. There's two men, including Daniel, so Daniel and another man, who are down in the well, I guess, in the oil well.
Yeah, in the well.
And a huge piece of the crane equipment falls down and smacks the other guy, like clean in the head, killing him instantly. Yeah. That leaves an orphan child above ground that Daniel is then tasked to look after. I mean, again, none of this is spoken. This is all just, you see him taking on this child.
It starts, and then you hear him introducing himself to a prospective town where they've struck oil, and he's introducing himself. And
so there is a few leaps in years. There's from the silver mining to the oil mining. There's a couple of years leap there.
Yeah, it starts in the late 19th century, and then when he starts speaking, it's in the early, like 1911, something like that.
Maybe a bit early, like 1902 or something. I can't remember. There's a.
Well, it's because HW's gone from being like a small baby to being like an 11-year-old.
Yeah, from then there's another leap forward, isn't there? Because I think the silver mine there's a leap forward from when you first meet Daniel to the accident scene.
Yes,
there's a small jump there. Say like 1898 to like 1902, and then I think 1902
it goes from 1908 to 1911. So the numbers,
there's
years.
So the majority of and then from then on, the majority of the movie is set in this time where Daniel is there with his adopted son HW, who he claims is his own.
Yeah.
And when asked about it, he says, "Where's the mother?" He says, "Well, his mother died in childbirth, so this is a ruse."
But it's just to present him as a family man, so that people feel like he's not some cold-hearted oil tycoon who's just going to try and swindle them out of their their very valuable property and just try and get them the best deal as they can.
As he says later on, "I needed a sweet face to buy land." So this
is the first of many Daniel Day-Lewis impressions through this.
This is a very quotable film.
His performance is outstanding. I can't think of one. Well, for one other performance that is as passionate and just lived in as Daniel playing for you. I don't see Daniel Day-Lewis. I just see that character.
Yeah.
I don't know whether it's just the mustache. But like that's the only difference between him in say Phantom Thread. And this in here, but it's such a captivating and like mesmerizing performance. I just can't take my eyes off him all the way through the film.
That's it. I think that it just comes down to, like you say, he completely embodies that character, whatever that monstrous character is. Or isn't, depending how you kind of, because there are, I think that, later on as the film progresses, there are scenes of weakness that you see, despair and, things. He's not completely without heart, but there's obviously something going on. And as I was mentioning before we started, there's a great Tarantino analysis of the opening 18 minutes, where he says, effectively that there's a movie missing in the first 18 minutes, where after Daniel breaks his leg and the mine has to crawl through the Californian desert, back to town. What did he have to go through? He's got a broken leg. He's in the middle of nowhere. The sun is scorching like down on him. That's a movie in itself, and also the amount of character development or character harm going on, damage done to his psyche in that scene is not addressed and is not mentioned again or anything like that. But that's a whole movie within itself.
It was weird watching it again this afternoon, that knowing where he ends up and how much of an oil baron he becomes, just seeing, I forgot that he was actually down in the wells doing the digging and doing
getting his hands dirty.
He was getting his hands dirty because, again, that's where everyone starts essentially.
Yeah.
But like breaking his leg with using the dynamite just before the guy gets killed in a very sudden and very blunt way.
Yeah.
The fact that like he's down digging and like he has to go up for air because he's been down in the dirt, and
in these incredibly dangerous kind of oil. And there's a guy smoking, like the guy next to him smoking next to these this crude oil, all coming on. There's like health and safety nightmare.
It's just very interesting to see that he hasn't. My impression was that he was always just the guy behind the workers, and he didn't actually go. He didn't actually go down the well and work with the rest of them.
But rewatching it, you realised how much
it was more of an arc, seeing where he ends up and what he starts with.
Yeah,
I always just thought it just cut into him being, I'm an oil man, you see.
But he hadn't actually scratched around in the dirt, as he says. And
the 18 minutes
dirty.
at the beginning of no speaking is just all you need to know to see what he did and where he's been to get to that point where you meet him for real Daniel Plainview for the first time.
Yeah, it's enough character development in itself, and without but that's the genius of it, isn't it? If you're on paper, you think like, oh, how are we going to know who this guy really is without him saying anything?
Yeah,
and it's just done so brilliantly, and it's more than enough than you need to really get a feeling of what this guy's about. And So then we carry on from there, and he's basically there's a sort of again a montage showing like of him, going to towns, offering his services to them to help them get the oil safely out of the ground and make the maximum profit. And there's a scene where he goes to this town, and their oil is like they've got a gusher, it's coming out of the ground, and the oil's everywhere, and like it's in chaos. And he basically and you can tell there's a lot of oil there, and he just basically says, "No, there's too much confusion. I wouldn't give you, I wouldn't take this if you gave it to me as a gift." So that's how much this is not worth his time, even though this is clearly a profitable situation. He's after even bigger game.
Yeah, I found that very interesting, not just from a character point of view that he's able to walk away from such a thing, but from a direction and an art direction point of view. Like, you think that this is just a nice, quiet town that he's just maybe come into as a prospective buyer.
Yeah.
But then when he gets up and he stands up and leaves, and then you see the chaos that's happening outside because they've actually struck oil, and oil is just rolling down the hills
like a river,
and he just like walks through it because he doesn't give a crap about it. I just thought that was such an amazing, like, there are going to be set pieces in this film that you don't see coming, and this is just a small part of a larger thing going on. And that just took me by surprise, because you always don't think that something's going on like outside of where the film's taking place.
I see what you mean. It's almost like a punchline to the scene, isn't it? Just having that like crazy explosive set piece outside the door of where we've been. Yeah, essentially. Yeah.
And he's such a man of he has such a plain view, if you will. Yeah. That he is such a one-track mind that he just doesn't want the chaos of that.
Yeah.
So the fact is that the trouble that he goes through with the Sundays and for the oil there is so it's evident of how much he really wants this well.
Yeah.
And this is obviously going to make him, and he's willing to go through this chaos.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like you say, later on when we get to that point where he is insistent on, well, we know from his underhand, backhanded activities that he needs this. This is something that is actually piquing his interest.
He's willing to go through all that chaos.
Exactly. Yeah. And because we've seen him turn down something that to me and you would look like, life-changing, opportunity.
It's running down there's so much oil that's running everywhere. Yeah.
So we get a picture of where this guy's at, how he's impossibly wealthy and, very, very successful. And then we cut to a scene where this youngish, 20-something lad comes to his offices and basically says, "I know where there's oil, like in my town. And if you give me X amount of money, I will tell you where it is, and then when you come, you can give me some more when it proves to be successful." So he sort of reluctantly agrees to this, but warns him that if he's lying, then he'll take more than his money back.
Yeah.
From him.
And that's Paul Dano's first appearance in the film, isn't he?
That's right.
He speaks about his hometown, and they have a bit of an interesting mind game, cat and mouse, that goes on where they're trying to get the information out of Paul.
Yes.
Paul Sunday.
He introduces himself as Paul Sunday at this point.
But they try and use their wily businessman ways to get the information out of him without paying him. But he's like, "Don't treat me like I'm stupid."
Yeah.
And it's just interesting to see the fact that this is the first time that maybe things aren't going to go Daniel's way. And he gets really annoyed by just like the simple little... The way he gets caught out when he's trying to outsmart him is very, very interesting. Yeah. But like you say, he ends up just giving him the money, finding out where this town was it Little...
Oh God, I should know this. Little Boston.
Little Boston, yeah.
Little Boston, which is it? It's California, isn't it?
I think it's all based around California.
Yeah. And it's very, and he sort of says, what? Tell me what this town's like, this area, and he says, well, we've got nothing basically. We have
mainly
very
rocks.
poor, mainly rocks, very poor farm. The earth is salty, and the water's salty. We can't grow anything but potatoes. Mm-hmm. So it's like so it's that thing of like Daniel could go anywhere at this point. He's rich beyond anybody's wildest dreams.
And so these people sound like they would take anything.
Yeah,
because nothing else is coming from their land.
Exactly.
They're not going to be able to make anything from it. So he could come in and offer them probably dirt, nothing.
Yes, and there's going to be no pushback. There's going to be, they're sort of, simple farmers, uneducated people. So something's brewing in his head, and he knows that this is, or he's got a good feeling about this one. We assume. So he goes down there and moves there essentially. Well, no, he takes a recce first, doesn't he, with HW, and says they're going
scouts it out.
Hunting for quail.
Quail hunting.
Yes, just hunting for quail, nothing else. Yeah. Nothing to do with oil. And goes to visit the farm where the Sunday family are. Sets up a little camp, sort of takes their hospitality, and then Paul Dano comes back again and approaches him around the campfire and introduces himself as Eli,
the twin brother.
Yeah. So he introduces himself as Eli, and Daniel gives him the most amazing long stare.
Yeah, like he's seen a ghost. Is this man taking me for a fool?
Yes.
What do you think about that?
Well, this is probably, as I told you, I watched it with so many different groups of people. Yeah. This is probably the most debated scene, of the movie, which is interesting. Like you would bring it up as well. So I think, at this point, my take on it is that Daniel is looking at him after he departs, and he's thinking, this guy's mentally ill. This guy's crazy.
Oh, okay.
I think that he thinks it is the same person. He doesn't for a minute think that they're twins. I think he ponders it for a moment, and I think that's the point where he says, this guy is as crazy as I am. There's something in him. He thinks this guy is flawed, fundamentally. But whether he sees it as a weakness or maybe more of a challenge almost, because he thinks this guy is going to be difficult.
Yeah,
that's the way I kind of perceive it. Is that it's certainly he assesses at that minute that this guy is crazy, and that's either going to be better for him or it's going to be worse. I don't quite know what he's thinking there, but it's definitely that's the assessment I think that he makes at this point.
But not to skip ahead to the end, but when he's speaking to Eli at the end, he says that Paul is the one who is the smart one, and he got out and he runs a successful oil company now, and he's in blah blah blah.
That's a farce, I think. I think that's a mind game.
Oh, okay.
That's the way I read it. Is that in that scene he is using that, and Eli actually says, why are you talking about Paul? It's like, why are you talking about him? It's like he knows that that's his schizophrenic like alter ego, or there's something going on there where Eli is nuts, and he puts all of his problems on this Paul, this fictitious brother.
I can see where that's coming from, because this is the first time that I've ever really thought about that potential. The potential lies that Paul may be spinning, or Eli may be spinning.
Okay.
In terms
so
of,
how did you perceive it?
First time I watched it, it was twins.
Definitely.
Paul mentioned that he's got a brother called Eli. Didn't mention that he was a twin, but that just threw Daniel when he sees him, and that threw the audience when he sees him.
So you think Paul is literally another character?
He gets the money for telling him where it is, and then manages to move on. Which is why Eli sometime, like at the beginning, when Daniel has the first meal with the family, with the Sunday family, and speaks to Abel about how much is your property worth, Abel? But then he keeps coming back to saying and what about our oil? And, so trying to catch Daniel out, but then Daniel seems to try and catch him out. And I don't know. The first time I watched that, I just thought, they're brothers, but Eli is just too smart for him, just like Paul was too smart for him.
Right. Okay.
And this is just, again, a really difficult situation for Daniel to try and get out of. But this time when I was watching it, I was like, oh, maybe it is the same person, but he's just wanting to get some money out of bringing him to Little Boston.
Oh, okay.
And then pretending to be a different person, or say, oh no, you've met Paul. That the old twin magic that I'm sure every twin does, where they just pretend to be the other one.
I think personally, and just thinking about it even more now that Eli, there is only Eli. Eli thinks is basically, or as soon as Daniel arrives on his family's farm, is already regretting the decision and passes it off on this Paul, this fictitious character.
Oh, okay.
Because I think that, like later on, shortly after, he's like, it was your stupid son, this Paul, so it's not me who did it, it's this other.
Oh, and he's blaming Abel.
Yeah, I think he's projecting his, and he's like, he this man came here because of Paul, not because of me, because that's the way I think he's ill and he's crazy, and what he's doing is basically passing the buck to this alter ego, to this other person, saying it wasn't me. I'm a good Christian. I would not have done this. See, I brought this guy to the town. No.
I thought it was because Daniel's impression seems to change so much when he sees the fact that they are identical, that he just immediately doesn't trust him, immediately thinks he's a bit of a con man, like, he's pulled one over on me, so therefore he's pulling one on all these people in this town, being a pastor. I've gone West Country. I've gone West Country accent playing Daniel Day-Lewis.
Being a bastard.
An oil bastard.
You've been poaching my quail.
Oh God! Right, it's not a West Country, but okay. So that made me think that that's why Daniel doesn't trust Eli. Daniel thinks that he's a false prophet, and he's being hoodwinking the people of the town in this false pastor narrative, and trying to get everyone's money. And I just thought that again, it was just an idea, and I'm glad I brought it up with you now to know that I'm not alone in this. But it was just the first time, like, again, on multiple viewings, you just pick up on different things.
I mean, it's. I can't say definitively why, any of these, things are sort of like
ambiguity.
Ambiguity. But it's, it just the way I see that is, to summarize the film for me, it's basically the battle of wills against two very, very disturbed people. That's the way I see it. Two ill people who are ill.
It essentially boils down to that, doesn't it?
Yeah, basically, and that's as we'll talk about the conclusion later on and how there is blood, and but yeah, it's so. That's kind of where we're up to. So Daniel comes to town and he does make a deal. He basically says to Eli, "What do you want for this? I want to buy your land, and what do you want?" And he says, $4,000. And he says, "What for?" And he says, "My church."
10,000.
10,000. Sorry, God.
I'm going to be correcting you on everything you're getting wrong. Don't worry.
It's embarrassing. I've only seen it 25 times. But yes, and again another wonderful Paddington-style long stare. After he says, "For my church," and he just looks at him like,
"That's good."
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And it's just brilliant. Like, really? Like, okay. And again, he's just weighing him up all the time. You know, but
so many pregnant pauses, so many long stares, so many. Yeah.
This is the first guy who's really challenged him and has dared to challenge his money and authority. So he demands this money and he agrees. So they have a deal. Then he cuts straight to the council office or whatever, the local surveyors, and he's buying up everything. He just says the great line. He says, "Can everything around here be got?" And he says, "Sure." So he has money. The land's really cheap, and so he basically now owns the town.
Yeah,
and I think this would be a good time to play a clip because this is probably my favourite scene of all time.
Wow. In
my favourite movie of all time.
Okay.
He's basically called the town together after making all of his purchases to basically tell them what his ideas are for the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for visiting with us this evening. I've traveled across half our state to be here and to see about this land. I dare say some of you might have heard some of the more extravagant rumors about what my plans are. I just thought you'd like to hear it from me. This is the face. There's no great mystery. I'm an oil man. Ladies and gentlemen, I have numerous concerns spread across this state. Many wells flowing at many thousand barrels per day. I like to think of myself as an oil man. As an oil man, I hope that you'll forgive just good old-fashioned plain speaking. Now, this work that we do is very much a family enterprise. I work side by side with my wonderful son, H.W. I think one or two of you might have met him already. I encourage my men to bring their families as well. Which makes for an ever so much more rewarding life for them. Family means children. children means education. So wherever we set up camp, education is a necessity, and we're just so happy to take care of that. So let's build a wonderful school in Little Boston. These children are the future that we strive for, and so they should have the very best of things. Now, something else, and please don't be insulted if I speak about this. Bread. Let's talk about bread. Now, to my mind, it's an abomination to consider that any man, woman, or child in this magnificent country of ours should have to look upon a loaf of bread as a luxury. We're going to dig water wells here, and water wells means irrigation. Irrigation means cultivation. We're going to raise crops here where before it just simply wasn't possible. You're going to have more grain than you know what to do with. Bread will be coming right out of your ears, ma'am. New roads, agriculture, employment, education. These are just a few of the things that we can offer you, and I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that if we do find oil here, and I think there's a very good chance that we will, this community of yours will not only survive, it will flourish. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have. Yes?
Will the new road lead to the church?
Well, that'll be the first place that it leads. Thank you, Eli. Anyone else? Well, if anything comes up, I'm pretty easy to find. You just come visit with me. Thank you so much for your time.
Wow. So, I mean, I don't know where to start with that. I mean, musically,
Yeah.
on a basic level, musically, the music is telling you, Daniel is telling the town that everything is going to be great. Everything is, they're going to have it better than it's ever been.
Yeah.
And the music, to me, is saying the exact opposite.
Mm-hmm.
Which is, you know,
Sinister
it's a basic juxtaposition, but I just think that works just so well.
Do you see this as a bit of a comparison to when Eli's talking to the town, was talking to his congregation and saying like, "I will get all these demons out of you"?
What's the difference?
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're both, well, coming from an atheist point of view, they're both like snake oil salesmen, and they're just trying to get what they want out of people.
Yeah, your money or your soul is like, you know, I can give you, you know, one can offer one, and the other guy can offer the other.
Would you reckon Paul Thomas Anderson is trying to come at this from a very anti-religious view?
Well, I think that he's pretty mean on both things, really, on religion and money. I think nothing's safe, really, in this film. That's the thing, you know.
But do you think he keeps them as equals?
Well, I don't know. I mean, as an atheist or even an anti-theist, I'm kind of, you know, I'm more inclined to side with the person who's mocking religion and, you know, and exposing it for the, you know, the drivel that it is. But at the same time, you know, Daniel's an anti-hero. He's not. He's far from perfect and incredibly greedy and violent and. You know, as we, you know, towards the end, as you see, you know, when we cut forward, we jump forward again in time, you know, his money has not made him healthy or happy in any way. No. He's just shriveling up and turning into, a gargoyle golem.
A big glass of brandy.
A big glass, shaking hands.
Essentially, yes.
Gold-plated whiskey glasses and gold cigarette holders, and, you know, it's just, yeah. So I think it's down on both. I think it exposes both things. It's fairly even-handed, I think, in a way, saying neither is going to save you.
Well, I was wondering about the title, and do you reckon it's relating to both business and religion, in terms of both don't bring you happiness in the end? Eventually, there will be blood on both sides. Yeah,
I think so, because I mean, I agree with both of those statements. Really, I think they're both, you know, pretty fair statements. My friend Max also used to talk a lot about the sucking the blood from the earth, you know, the whole thing of like, you know, it's not subtle, the imagery of like fucking the earth and sucking the blood, you know, out of it and destroying the planet, you know, there will be, you know, sucking the earth's blood and sort of life force. So, yeah, it's pretty downbeat all round, really. I can't think there's not a positive message you can take from it, really.
Not at all. That's why I'm like, you need to dedicate time to it, because this is going to drain you.
Yeah.
It's an experience when you come out the end of it and just think, oh, God, yeah.
There's so many metaphors in it. I mean, you know, there's religious undertones, there's overt kind of, peak oil, that this was the start of the oil boom, and it's very, very quickly ran out. And I think we reached peak oil in 1973 or something. Oil's been going down ever since then. Yeah. So it feels like a kind of a morality tale on every level, really, in a lot of ways.
There are two, one scene in particular I find discusses it, I don't know, has it at the centre point more than anything. When, not to skip ahead in your explanation of the story, but eventually when one of the oil sites crashes and one of the workers gets struck on the head and dies in the pit, you can see it's taken out of Daniel. Daniel comes up and he's like, these rules need to be followed. If you're going down into the cellar, you tell someone that you're going. Yeah. But then the first encounter that you would expect from Eli and the church is to say, "I'm so sorry, when can we hold the funeral?" But the first thing he does is saying, "When are we going to get our money?"
Yeah.
And Daniel just slaps the absolute piss out of him. Yeah. Gets him on the floor, just covers him in dirt and oil and soil. And I can't help but see the symbolism of it dirties everybody. Like money dirties the church. Yeah. It dirties those who are self-righteous. Yeah. And in a way, that is the most anti-hero that Daniel is in the film, where he's taking him down and said, like, I'm going to bury you in this, Eli. I'm going to bury you alive,
and when are you going to make my son hear again? Because it's after
aren't you a healer? Aren't you a exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
aren't you a vessel for healing?
That's a really interesting scene, like when you think about it, because because before he kind of kept a real facade when he was very polite to Eli, really, in a lot of ways, and they always had this public kind of like.
Oh, he's been stoic. He's been
really stoic.
He's been seething, but he has been keeping a very big public face. Like pretending that he's a godly man. Yeah. At the opening of the big, I can't remember the name of it, but the big oil tower. Yeah. It begins with D. Like
the Derrick.
Derrick.
Yeah, Derrick. Yeah.
Taking the lines that Eli gives to him.
That was
it's such a fantastic thing.
Such a dig.
Sorry, yeah. So Eli comes to him before the day of the commencement and the opening ceremony to say, "You will introduce me. I will have a speech. Yeah. I will speak to the congregation and say, I will bless this. And Derrick.
You will call me. You will you will introduce me as a proud son of these hills."
Yes. Yeah. And essentially the next day when he does do the commencement ceremony, he doesn't invite Eli up, but he speaks to Eli's sister and calls her the proud daughter of the hills. And you can see Eli's face is just, oh, that's how you're going to do it.
Yeah,
it's just such.
And again, he's very stoic and just takes it. Yeah. He's not like wearing like a face or anything. He's just like smiling, grinning. It's all a battle of wits. Yeah, and it's like almost I never thought of this before, but the scene where he buries Eli in the soil and in the mud and the oil. It's kind of like Daniel's kind of seen his arse a bit because the tower's exploded and that's all kind of gone a bit wrong, and he's basically like. So insecure at that point, that because something has gone wrong with his operation, that he's just like, aren't you meant to be, where are your healing powers and this old stuff you preach, and everything like that.
Of course, because HW is injured by this point.
Yeah. There's an explosion. So the Derrick's running. The oil. Yes, they're sort of drilling for oil, but it's not been discovered yet. It's not started gushing out. And when that happens. There's a sort of a gas explosion that happens. I guess is kind of part and parcel of the process.
A gas pocket leaks.
Gas pocket, it just explodes out, and HW is kind of playing on top of the Derrick, and he gets thrown.
He gets the
by the
blast
explosion,
of it,
which causes him to lose his hearing. We found, and I think we need to talk a bit about that set piece because when the Derrick
such
explodes,
a beautiful. Tragedy.
Amazing. So the thing explodes and you have the music starts and it's this kind of Radiohead-esque Johnny Greenwood like out of time drum loop that just starts and
tension builds. Something's about to happen. You don't know what, but
and over the next 5 minutes or so, the drum loop kind of comes together and it gets more complex and everything, and the Derrick suddenly bursts into flames, and it's kind of like you get that really great lens flare, and it's just this amazing set, and everyone's covered in like it's raining oil, and everyone's just covered in oil, and but Daniel, even after learning that HW is gravely injured, comes out and says, what are you all looking so miserable about?
Yeah.
There's a whole ocean of oil under our feet.
Exactly. Yeah. So,
even after the tragedy.
Showing his truth of what he actually prioritizes in life. There's a great shot of, I think, like Kieran Hines, his partner is just looking at it, but he's not covered in oil. But then Daniel's next to him, and he is completely covered from head to toe in oil, and he's camouflaged into the background because it's set at like the pitch of night. Yeah, and all you see is like his eyes and his mouth open, and everything else is he just fades into the background. And,
against the sky behind him and stuff.
Yeah, it's just disappeared into the oil essentially.
Yeah,
he is more oil than man.
And like people I've watched this with have said, like, how much does he really care about HW? And how much is he just a tool to help him on his quest for oil? And I think that there's certain scenes where I think that maybe he does, have a kind of a heart and feel kind of bad for his actions. Later on, he when he can't come to terms with his deafness, his newfound the deafness that's occurred in HW, he basically sends him away. He just puts him on a train.
Yeah, that's a very heart-wrenching scene, leaving him on the train.
He walks off and leaves him there, and he's screaming, "Dad, Dad, Dad!" And Daniel's looking away. He can't even look back. He's straight. I think he even gets his like hip flask out and starts sipping.
Start of the alcohol.
He can drink as well.
God, I can only imagine it'd be like with Nail and I if you're trying to keep up with the drinking game. Drink every time Daniel drinks. Jeez.
Yeah. Oh, at the end where he grabs the bottle of
vodka,
undisclosed liquid,
clear liquid. I can only imagine it's
moonshine, and he just and then when you think he's gonna drop, when he's finished drinking, he drops it down and then drops it back up again. And
has another one.
Has another swig, and So after HW departs. Quite very soon afterwards, a man shows up at Daniel's door. Yeah. He says, "Who are you?" And he says, "Well, I'm your brother from another mother. Mm-hmm. Ernest was my father." And, so they basically they'd be half brothers.
Yeah, half brothers.
So Daniel is... sorry, this is before HW departs. Apologise,
because HW doesn't trust him initially, does he?
No, and he tries to set fire to his
tries
quarters.
To kill him by setting fire to him.
So there's obviously a lot of jealousy. That's what causes the Daniel to finally get rid of him, as well as
send him on his way.
His disability. Yeah. And
should say he's sending him to like a boarding school.
They sort of mention
it. Just like sending him on a train somewhere.
Yeah, just anywhere.
Good luck.
Yeah, like Back to the Future off the tracks. But yeah, you see, because he sort of. But what's brilliant about it is it's so subtle because he doesn't say, I'm sending HW away. You don't hear these conversations. No, he just turns to his colleague at one point and says, "How big is the room?" Mm-hmm. He says, "Well, he's sharing with another boy," and he goes, "Are you going to take thing?" And then that's it. And you just don't. But you just know, that he's. So he's sort of concerned about. He's like, "How big's the room? Is he all right?" Mm-hmm. There's a little concern there. Mm-hmm. Very small amount, not enough. So basically, then I guess HW is essentially replaced
as
by
the business partner,
this half brother.
Yeah.
Who then comes along to the meetings and is there, but Daniel's not 100% happy. Is he? You can tell it's not quite working.
I don't know about you, but this little mini storyline of the brother coming in and then Daniel trying to figure out whether he is or isn't his real brother. Yeah, I don't know about you. I don't feel like it's needed in the story. I feel like the film is going at such a pace and you're learning so much about Daniel, and then it comes to a halt and slows down so much at this bit that I feel like if it was removed, it not only would it be more appealing to people because it wouldn't be 2.5 hours, but it would just, I feel it would speed things up.
I can't disagree with you in a lot of ways. I mean, the movie you could go straight from the departure of HW to the sort of what's the scene, but then
do you think it adds anything to it?
For me, it's kind of the straw and the camel's back thing. It's his last chance at redemption. Yeah. Having this family connection and possibly having a normal existence, and when he then goes on spoilers, when he goes then to find out at gunpoint, he begins to suspect that this guy is not who he says he is, and at gunpoint he confesses that he's not. And
yeah,
he
he's
stole
a
his
friend
brother's,
of his real brother.
a friend of his real brother's, and his real brother is dead, and he stole his story and came to basically make his fortune with Daniel and manipulate him. And Daniel quickly executes him with the gunshot to the head.
Actually, yeah, thinking about that, because of the gunshot to the head, doesn't that therefore mean the scene afterwards happens because of that? Essentially, like, Daniel has been trying to get this guy off his land. Is it Bardi? Like Mr. Bandy, yeah, to get off his property so he can get a pipeline through and become even more insanely richer.
Yeah.
But Bandy's refusing to leave. He finds, so his brother comes. Brother turns out to not be his brother. In a fit of rage, he kills the fake brother. But then Bandy comes up to him the next morning and knows what he's done.
Yeah, he knows that he's murdered someone. He knows that's happened. But like all good Christians, he's like, well, all you need to do is just confess your sins, join our church, and all will be forgotten. And then you'll get what you want.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. I'll let you have it if you join our congregation.
And he tries to bribe him. I'll pay you $2,000.
Just so he doesn't have to join the congregation.
Be baptized. And he's like, I'll pay $5,000. He'll do anything not to be baptized. And he finally caves.
So it's the final nail in the coffin.
Yeah, so that's the way I saw it, is the last thread of humanity just snapping in his head, that someone has tried to manipulate him.
Yeah.
And his brother, he finds out that his real brother is dead. So that's the last family member. That he
breaks down and cries, and this is the first time you've seen him being that vulnerable. Really,
he gets exactly. And so that's the way I always kind of read that. Is that's the kind of last straw. So then he does get baptized, which is one of the best scenes committed to film.
I think Paul Dano's acting in that scene is fantastic as well as Daniel Day-Lewis. I'm surprised he didn't get nominated for Best Supporting Actor that year.
He's really good, and a lot of people kind of criticise him, including Tarantino, like says in that same interview, said he doesn't think that. But I suppose that if you're next to Daniel Day-Lewis, you're always going to be second fiddle.
Yeah, everyone. Well, their brightness lessens next to him a little bit because he's just chewing the scenery that much.
Yeah, exactly. But I think he's adequate because he is kind of a weaker character and physically weaker, and everything.
He plays the weaselly, snivelly, little underhanded guy so well.
He's really good at it. Yeah, he's fantastic. I love it. I think I can't imagine anyone else in that part, to be honest. Maybe Tobey Maguire could have done a decent job.
I was thinking Michael Cera.
Yeah, Michael. Yeah. To be fair, yeah. And what's that chap from Social Network?
Jesse Eisenberg?
He could have done it. He could have been alright.
The one that Michael Cera always gets confused for being.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So he could have. So we can think of 3 other people. I went from saying I can't think of anyone else. We could go on.
Did you hear what Michael Cera says to people when he gets confused for being Jesse Eisenberg?
No.
Apparently, I think someone came up to him and said, "Oh, you were brilliant in Zombieland." And he said, "Thanks very much. You should watch Adventureland. I'm really good in that as well." So
take credit for both.
Yeah, he's owning it.
Excellent. We're up to. That's where we're up to, and
he gets slapped in the face a lot. He has to confess his sins.
Yeah,
and about his behavior and his actions with HW essentially.
Yeah. So he Paul Paul Dano's character sees it this is his opportunity, I think, to get square with him, and he really lets him have it and makes him confess to all these things that he's he even says he's lusted after women, which is not something we have any evidence for. We've never seen that. In fact, the opposite, when him and his half brother, quote unquote, are in the brothel, Daniel is just sitting there seething, and you can hear the sort of the laughter and the prostitutes around him, and he's not getting involved in that. No. He doesn't need that. That's not what
oil is his woman.
Yeah, basically. He just seems, that's why another thing that makes him less human, it's just he doesn't seem to have any desire for, you see him talk about a real wife or a woman or a desire to be married or anything like that.
Well, the only way I can see him having a son is if he adopts a son like HW. Yeah. Essentially, that's the only way he could potentially look like a family man. Yeah, which is again really underhanded because that's the only way that he would take care of HW is if he would benefit from it.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's how. But that's why I felt like the brother storyline. It was trying to humanize someone that I didn't feel needed humanizing. I mean, I don't know. I don't think if it wasn't in it, he would just be a caricature. I think Daniel Day-Lewis plays him so well that you still would believe this character does exist, even if there isn't a redeemable moment, such as him crying after the revelation that his brother's actually died.
If there was one thread from the movie to be removed, I could agree with that. I mean, I don't think it's like completely essential. It does build a bit of character, I think, but it's not wholly necessary. So then we get to the point where he's basically coasting now, and he's getting through, and everyone's got what they want. Eli's got his confession from Daniel. He's been baptized into the church.
Oh, the whole town love him.
The whole town loves him. The oil's producing really, really well. So this is the point where we need to skip forward in time.
Yeah.
Again, so then we skip forward another, I think it's to 1927 or 19 or thereabouts, and in that montage we see that HW has returned. Yeah, so HW returns to him previously, like after he kills his quote unquote brother. Yeah. He quickly gets HW back. Isn't that convenient?
Yeah.
He
needs a business partner.
He needs a business partner again. Yeah. So then we skip forward in time and we see HW is getting married to
it's Eli's
Sunday
sister.
Yeah. So the Sunday sister.
Yeah.
And
which I thought was a really nice transition. The fact that you see him learning sign language from a tutor, but then you also see, is it Mary Sunday?
Mary Sunday, yeah.
Mary also learning, but like not because she's the recipient of the training, but she's just in the background learning how to say certain things.
Yeah, as they're kids, and then it goes forward to the wedding ceremony, and you see the vows. They're doing the vows with their hands, so you get the sign. It's brilliant. Plus the casting of those, the kids to the adults,
exactly
is
the same.
Amazing.
But yeah, just like in one cut, everything that you need to know about, like, oh, she's so invested in him, she's actually learned sign language to speak to him, and therefore
they love each other.
They love each other. They've stayed together from that point, and that's just such a fantastic little.
And they're so
shortcut.
happy, and you can see like how great.
Yeah.
Then we after that, we're 1927. We cut to the biggest stately home.
Yeah, it's essentially Xanadu from like Citizen Kane, isn't it? Yeah,
I think it was the same the same location that was used in The Big Lebowski.
for Lebowski's manor or whatever.
So it's to communicate impossible wealth, like this. And one of my favourite cuts ever, which still just makes me laugh so much, is that Daniel is so impossibly wealthy. We cut to the corridor inside, and Daniel has set up a shooting range inside his house, where he seems to be destroying with a pistol from a distance priceless ornaments like Ming vases. He's set up and he's just shooting down the corridor. It makes me laugh so much, that cut.
Just the bored amount of violence that that guy just has to try and find.
And then HW growing up comes to visit him and steps over all these broken pieces of vase and ornament to come and speak to him. And this is probably the most heart-wrenching scene in the whole thing, because HW has to communicate through a translator who translates from sign language to Daniel and back again. So they have this, father-son conversation.
This three-way conversation.
That's the least intimate thing, because it's translated through, sign language.
So obviously, like, Daniel hasn't bothered to learn sign language like Mary has.
Yeah.
He doesn't care about HW enough to learn how to speak to him.
There you go.
Yeah, he's just willing to. He's just willing to just never speak to his son again.
Yeah, and he is obviously not bothered in the interim to even consider learning. And they have this heart-wrenching talk where basically Daniel gets furious and tells him, "You're not my son. You never were."
Well, it's because he wants to set out and become his own man, doesn't he? He wants to step out from the plain view shadow, and try and become an oil man.
Your own
himself.
Company.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, your own company, huh? In Mexico. You're killing us with what you're doing. You're killing us.
Yeah.
You're killing my image, your image of you as my son.
Exactly. The Plainview empire is now going to be split.
Yeah.
Essentially.
And he says, "You're not my son." He says, "Please don't say that." He says, "No, you're literally, you're not my son." And then this is
revealed
revelation.
that he's an orphan and he got taken on.
You're lower than a bastard, he says. You're a bastard from a basket.
He has nothing to do with me. You have none of me in you.
Yeah. And then he's a great mic drop moment from HW where he says, "I thank God I have none of me in you," and walks away.
None of you in me.
Sorry, yeah.
That is a very, very important distinction.
I have watched this movie. Sorry. What's it called again?
Yeah.
What did I say?
I thank God that I've got none of me in you. Because I'm pretty sure he is thanking God for that as well. But yeah.
Yeah. Right, okay, what
None
you said.
of you in me.
And yeah, none of you and me.
Yeah.
And then and walks off. And Daniel is left screaming, you're a bastard from a basket, as loud as he possibly can through this empty house. It's so then we have the finale, the final scene, which is probably the most quoted scene.
Yeah, so Daniel
incredibly drunk.
Yes, he reacts to this in a very, very self-destructive manner.
Yeah,
he essentially.
But is this just a normal afternoon for Daniel? As well?
Guess,
that's the way I kind of think.
Yeah, just gets insanely blind drunk.
Yeah.
Ends up in the bowling alley of his mansion.
Yeah.
And then Eli comes to visit.
Yeah, which is just great because you just like run, bitch, run.
Do you not know what's going to come for you now?
Daniel's passed out between two lanes in the bowling alley and with like a steak on one side and like God knows what on the other, bottles of moonshine everywhere, and he basically comes to him asking for money. Again, essentially,
it's informing him about Bandy.
Well, that's that he comes with. He says he comes with news of
Bandy's
Bandy.
death. So,
Bandy, the father Bandy's death.
He can finally buy the one place that he wasn't able to buy when he was in Little Boston.
Yeah, so he's offering it to him, isn't he? He's basically, he's obviously on hard times, and he's just trying to offer him this
yeah, because the last time you see him, he's going away. He's going on a mission, he says.
Yeah.
As if some kind of message from God has told him to go to. He's going further into California, isn't he? To try and change the sinners that are in the rest of California.
That's it. What his mission statement is. That obviously didn't work out too well. Eli's there, trying to wake Daniel up desperately, and Daniel is out for the count. He's been drinking all sorts of bottles of moonshine, knocking around. He's shaking him. He even says, "Daniel, Plainview, the house is on fire," as an attempt to rise him,
trying to wake him.
Doesn't work.
No.
And then he eventually comes around and recognises that Eli's come to visit him, and they sit down. Eli makes them a drink. Daniel turns down the drink that Eli offers, grabs this bottle of clear liquid, this huge jar, and begins to down the contents of it. And he's just downing and downing and downing while Eli's talking about how well he looks.
Yeah.
Which is just... So this whole end scene is just complete black comedy.
Oh,
the whole thing is, the gloves are off, it's hilarious.
It feels like you're actually part of Daniel's almost mania at this point, where it's just like, okay, sod it. We've gone through all this terrible hardship. This is... We don't need to see Eli right now. Eli's just going to be pissing us off, just like he's pissing off Daniel. And it's just like retribution coming and all the anger that Daniel feels towards him.
And you just like run. When you see him come into the situation, you're like, this is not going to end well for you.
Just run, Eli. This ain't going to end well. Yeah, why are you here?
It's because, Daniel's like completely ousted his son, and so you think if he's got, if that's the level that he's at, where he doesn't even care about his own adopted son anymore.
What's he going to do to you?
Exactly,
Sunshine?
So it's going to go down. You just don't know how.
No.
And when. So they have this chat, and Eli's basically kind of got his cap in his hand, and he's saying, he sort of updates him on what's going on in Little Boston, and how the young son of Bandy has come to New York, has come to Hollywood to be in movies and be a film star, and so he's sort of catching him up on all the local gossip, and then he basically says, I've fallen on hard times, and I need more money. I need more money from you. Yeah. Well, I need the money that you owe me.
Yeah, sorry.
That you said you would give to me.
Yeah.
And Daniel toys with him, and it gets to the point of a scuffle where Daniel grabs him, throws him onto the bowling alley, and just starts
throwing shit.
Just starts to throw
bowling
stuff.
pins, glasses and ice tumblers and stuff like that. Yeah, it's absolutely horrible. Isn't it?
Yeah, it's a really horrible scene. Even though it's that kind of mixed sympathy where you kind of Daniel, Daniel's a bastard, but you kind of hate Eli even more because Daniel's your anti-hero, so it's kind of like this guy's trying to usurp him and kind of manipulate him, and you kind of think this is not going to end well from the start. So
Daniel's always been a straight shooter in a way. He's always kind of held his beliefs on his sleeve, and he's very straight, like a straight shooter, I've already said. But when it comes to Eli's been so manipulative and duplicitous, and using people's religion to kind of persuade them to do what he wants, and even manipulating Daniel to be baptized and be part of the church.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're on Daniel's side when it comes to this. You feel like this is comeuppance for Eli, trying to take advantage of so many people and coming
exactly
again.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the sort of methods of intimidation that Daniel uses. He makes him, he says, if you want this money, this payout, then you have to proclaim that you are a false prophet and that God is a superstition, and repeat it many, many times.
Just as Eli had made him say about his, I have abandoned my child.
Exactly. So it's a real comeuppance for him. So that happens. And then Daniel just denies him the money, says, like, you know, there's no oil where you're talking
there's
about.
nothing left.
Yeah.
You just sold out your whole religion for money that isn't there.
Exactly. And then this scuffle ensues, and and he proceeds to beat Eli to death with a bowling pin.
Yep.
And absolutely exhausted, falls down. You see the blood like oozing out of Eli's head, so you know he must be dead.
Yeah.
Daniel's butler comes down the stairs and says, "Mr. Daniel," and Daniel famously turns around and says, "I'm finished."
Yep. Are they the final lines of the film as well?
Yeah, that's the final lines of the
He's
movie.
done. He's finished.
He's finished, and the title card comes up. There will be blood, and this amazing orchestral score. And you just left kind of about, you know, I was like
just astounded that it's ended that way.
Yeah, exactly. And it feels it just feels right.
Yeah,
it just feels right.
It does.
It's really open for interpretation, the whole movie, and it's, you know, I think that every time I watch it, it feels kind of like a different movie, because, you know, there's so many fine details in there and sort of things that, you know, every time I watch it, I change my opinion on who's really good and who's bad, or, you know, all this kind of stuff, and, you know, if people have any humanity in them at all, any of the characters, you know. So it's just great. It's definitely my favorite movie.
I can see why. It is very powerful, very poignant, and definitely this scene just sticks in your mind after you watch it. It's always going to be there. I mean, like, before I had even seen it, I had heard the "I drink your milkshake, Eli.
I drink it up.
I drink it all up." And like all the different Daniel Day-Lewis impressions I'd heard, and it become like known within the film critic community or something.
Yeah, this part of popular culture, really, aren't they?
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah,
things, you know?
And yeah, a bastard from a basket was always one.
Yeah.
I've abandoned my child. I'm an oil man, or no, I'm a family man, isn't it? That's what it says,
I'm a family man.
Yeah, which has been now parodied by South Park in "I'm a ghoul man," talking about the vegetarian burgers, and I
thought it was only a matter of time because South Park had referenced because the Goo episode is very recent, isn't it? That's
it was like a few weeks ago.
Oh right, so it's like really bang up to date. They had referenced it. I can't remember what season it was, but where Wendy beats up Cartman.
Yeah, after Cartman's been tormenting her for the entire episode.
Yeah,
they eventually have like a fight in the playground,
and she turns around after and says, "I'm finished." And
exactly.
I thought that was such a cool reference because that's one of the more obscure quotes from it. You know, which is, you know, it's just a kind of the end of the movie, but to reference it like that, I thought was really, really cool.
Film lovers will know what they're talking about when she says, "I'm finished."
Yeah, it kind of verified, you know, just what a great movie it must be if Matt and Trey liked it and felt that it was worthy of parody.
Yeah.
Because that's, you know, I think parody is a really high form of praise, you know.
Yeah.
So I know some people who, you know, don't like parody movies that parody, you know, their favourite movies and stuff like that because they just find it, you know, it's almost like it's making fun of it. But I think that, you know, something is worthy of parody. That means it's great.
I mean, like,
you know?
you've got the stuff like epic movie and disaster movie, which are all pieces of shit.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, say, an entire episode of Cartman being an absolute dick to Wendy, and then they finally having a fight and her saying she's finished, you just like, oh, just like Daniel Plainview and Eli, this is how much Cartman's a dick. He's just like Eli, and there will be blood.
Yeah.
And you can completely understand where Wendy's coming from. So I completely agree. Yeah, I can definitely say with every time I watch it, I gain more respect for it, and I gain more understanding of why you like it so much, and why the film community loves it so much and reveres it. It's been often said to be like the best film of the last decade, or like the 2000 to 2010 best film during that decade.
Yeah, I think The Guardian just voted it. I was like I got the Guardian guide, and it was like top 100 films of the last 20 years.
Yeah.
And I was turning the pages just like, here we go, keep going. Yeah, there it is, number one. Yeah, very good.
But was it Roger Deakins who was the cinematographer?
I'm not sure. I can't can't confirm.
If any
that.
film
I'm not
looks
sure.
beautiful, I just assume it's Roger
It
Deakins these days.
probably is.
Yeah, I'll have to check that. But I know that is it Johnny Marr from
Johnny Greenwood
sorry,
of Radiohead. With this, the score is just absolutely amazing. I've been listening to it ever since I saw the film for the first time. I bought the album straight away, and I listened to it
powerful,
very, very often,
poignant, ethereal, really good.
Really experimental in places as well. You got these really offbeat drum rhythms on the scene where the derrick explodes, the oil derrick, and it's just amazing. And it just it's like any great film. Every time I watch it, it feels like it has a different intent.
Yeah.
Which is just the best thing you can say about a film.
And it's just anchored by probably one of the best performances of any character I think I've seen in film.
Yeah.
Like, he is Daniel Plainview. He isn't Daniel Day-Lewis. He loses himself completely. I know you could say that probably about any of Day-Lewis's performances.
Yeah,
that he just
but in this one
himself.
in particular,
he's such a quotable character.
Yeah.
He's such a believable... I can believe he may have been even real.
Yeah,
or, you know, he seems like an actual person.
Because in his other movies, he's great, but, in like Gangs of New York, for example, you kind of like, he's doing a New York thing.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the toughest beating I ever took. And you're like, okay, I see what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit pantomime bit in this because it's an accent you've never really heard, and it's something that I'm sure he did his research on, where the character was from, but the accent is so unique, and all of his mannerisms. It's really memorable, and if he did nothing, I remember thinking like, you just need to do nothing else now. You're fine. You can retire now. Like, if you make a movie that great, same with the directors. Like, you just go out on a high. That's it. He's made some great movies since then, but for me, nothing that's topped.
Well, he got the best supporting. He got the best actor for this, didn't he?
Yeah,
Oscar.
he did,
and then he got it for Lincoln after that as well.
Yeah, he's doing all right.
Nommed for
it's Phantom Thread.
That's the one, Phantom Thread.
Yeah,
yes,
I hate to say it because I've got such admiration for the director and for Daniel Day-Lewis, but that movie did not work for me at all. No, I didn't like it. What did you think?
I liked it in parts, and I thought it was going in a different direction than it eventually did. Because I thought that the relationship between his muse and him with the whole, well, I'm not going to spoil it, but like their relationship all the way through just goes through so many peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
That I thought it was going one way in terms of like a bit of a melodrama way, but it didn't. But
it did a Last Jedi for me. It was that thing where it went in a direction I didn't expect, but for worse. It didn't make me think, oh, that's clever, or that's good. I just thought, oh, really? That's stupid. So cheers for that. Bye.
We disagree a lot on The Last Jedi, so we're not going to get into that now.
I thought I love The Phantom Thread. It's like my favourite movie. It's like, oh, go away.
Phantom Thread, Phantom Menace. It all makes all the Phantom films.
Opera.
I can't think of another one.
Phantom Opera.
Phantom of the Opera.
Of the Opera. Play us out.
Okay. Thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe underneath our video on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all the social medias. Say goodbye, Matt.
Bye, Matt.
And that's goodbye from me.